Sure.
All right, welcome everybody to our final Trauma Informed Education Professional Learning Series session with our friends from Columbia College. This represents I guess, the end of year two of doing this. I hope we do it again
Mhm.
next year. No need to stop. A good party. Excited for Jennifer and Karen to do their thing. I brought some friends with me today. See
Yes.
behind me, I have my Call Me Mr. cohort from Columbia College, five of our six misters here with us, all that will be in the classroom soon, one of which that is a graduating senior, Mr. Caleb Mack. So we're happy to be here. I am going to turn it over to Karen. As promised, I will email you all the information once this session is over today. And I will turn it over to my friends, Karen and
Yay.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, we'll send everything to you after tonight's over. I send it pretty quick to Mr. King and he'll get it out to you. So don't stress about like if you didn't catch something or screenshotting or anything like that. We got you. So
Yeah.
you made it. Number 4. So show
hmm
hands or just drop it in the chat if you've been to all 4. We're not judging, but it's like that's
Right.
impressive over the course of a school year. And they've been kind of spread out this year.
They
So
have.
3 out of 4. Good. Thanks,
That's
Kelsey.
great.
Yeah. And if this is your first time, that's okay too. Like it
That's
doesn't
right.
matter. We are thrilled that you're here.
Yep. We
Awesome.
are.
All right. Let me click on.
I know that this is a crazy busy time of year for you to be here tonight. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, spring fevers. I know that's already kicking in and
Yeah.
full tilt.
Ramona, I love that you are here for number 4 this year. You did the other
Yay!
3 last year, and that's
Absolutely.
perfect. Yep.
You don't
So
have
it's
to.
all the same material. So that worked
Yeah,
out lovely.
perfect.
Yeah.
And this 2 out of 4. Thank you, Terrence. So this quick recap, you don't have to say a thing. And if nobody
hmm
says anything, that's okay. We're not going to force anybody. So just a kind of quick, if you have been here for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of the presentations, we just kind of want to do a recap. It's been a
hmm
minute since we've seen you last, and I think the last time was in February. Um, I think that's right.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
we
that's
even
right.
did some in the fall. So it might,
hmm
when we have time in between. So these are just a few things that we wanted to remind you. So we're not putting anybody on the spot. But we'll kind of slow down as we go through this, just in case you did miss it, you might can pull, making some connections in your brain. So one of
hmm
the first things we talked about is the overview of really what is trauma, what is it not, um, how do we know? We talked about ACEs. Does anybody remember ACEs? You may remember what it stands for? Not a quiz.
It's not a quiz, but does anybody know?
Adverse childhood experiences.
Look at Craig.
Adverse
He
childhood
knows.
experiences. Absolutely.
That's
And there,
right.
yep. And so if you've had an opportunity to take that, wonderful. It kind of just gives you some bearings on how trauma was defined in the late 1900s. And we've certainly made adjustments and learned so much more since then. What about how trauma impacts the brain? Remember any brain stuff? Triggers. I'm going to throw in some triggers, nervous system responses. So fight, flight, freeze,
Freeze and
fawn.
fawn.
Yes.
Sure, Lauren. I'll find the ACEs quiz and send it to you.
Don't take it now because it can be
Right.
triggering because
Yeah.
we'll add it to when we send it. How about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect. We'll just add it
So
in.
we're not keeping anything from you, but
Right.
it can be hard
It
to
can be
get into
triggering.
that whole rabbit hole.
Do y'all remember where in the brain our nervous system reacts out of? The little bitty like,
Jelly bean.
bean
Something.
size spot in
Ooh.
the brain
Good
that
example.
fight, flight, freeze come out of.
Mr. Sanchez is saying something. Go ahead,
What you
Mr.
saying, Mr. Sanchez?
The amygdala.
The
Woo!
amygdala.
Yeah, and the hippocampus, Kelsey, is very
Yep.
closely related because that's where some memories are stored. So yes, you're all in the right area. Good job.
You are. Yep.
That amygdala. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Very
Good
good.
job. And what about the part that we use for learning and organization and problem solving and emotional regulation and all the things? And this part of the brain is not, yes, Kelsey, it is not fully formed and developed until 28.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
point
The
to where,
prefrontal cortex.
there you go.
Yeah.
It's that forehead piece. So that
Mhm.
piece, so as if you remember from the spinal column, the brainstem, the brain forms up and around. So that's the last part. And as educators, this is the part that this is the part we're teaching standards to.
The part that's not fully formed.
We're
Right.
not
So it's
teaching it to the
growing and
amygdala.
developing.
Yeah.
That's funny, Kelsey. So I think most of us feel that way. And I'm well past that. But the great thing is we can develop new neural pathways even if we're over 28.
Yes. We can
Right.
plasticity, neural plasticity is what it's called. So it's moldable. And so that the old phrase kind of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yes, you can.
July.
Yeah, yes, you can. That was just a cop out for somebody that didn't want to learn something new. So,
Mhm.
and what about, so good job on that. That's some big, heavy words in there too.
It is.
What about resilience? What do you remember about that?
Do y'all remember anything about resilience?
How do we
Protective
learn?
factors?
Mhm.
Yep.
It's
Can
okay.
somebody describe what one protective factor is? So, what is a protective factor that you offer to your students? This is the most important thing we carry with us everywhere we go.
This is your love and support,
Yes.
security.
Mm-hmm. That's
Thank
right,
you.
Ramona.
Yes.
It's that relationship, right? Building that relationship with your students. That's the most important thing that you carry with you that's a resilience factor for them.
Good deal.
Yeah.
And so, and remember too, this was going back. So this is probably 2024 stuff, but the more aces you have, kind of weigh that kind of that seesaw down, but the more resilience factors you have. So even if you have 10 out of 10 aces, everyone has at least some resilience from that because you're still here, right? So the more resilience factors you have really help to offset the triggers and aces that you might have experienced as a child. And we continually offer and teach that to people as we go. We hopefully don't re-traumatize folks, but that's the one thing that we have control over is that co-regulation to build resilience, and that's through relationships. Yeah. Good. Self-care and wellness. These were kind of like the big topics of the last one. So there's so much in here and it's fine. Do you have any takeaways from self-care and wellness?
Like it's always needed. Like, and it comes in different forms. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, the thing I remember the most that y'all shared was the slide that had so many different options for self-care, wellness.
Yes.
Because most people, they just think, oh, get a massage.
Correct.
It's
right.
Massages are great.
That's
Right.
But there's so many other things that we can do. So that wheel that y'all had in the presentation last time really stuck out to me because there's so many different options and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Exactly right.
Thank you. Yeah. And Sarah just put, we always focus on those around us, but not ourselves. Because as in society, we've been socialized to do that.
Mhm.
Don't be selfish. You know, you take care of other people. Saying no is offensive almost, especially like in the South. Like, no, I don't really want to do that. Like, too bad. You show up for everybody. And I think educators and social work people that work in schools are
Yeah.
highly socialized to do that. Like, you work,
Mhm.
you know, you're in it for the kids. We don't pay you but 12 cents a year. But I mean, you're in it for the kids,
Mhm.
right? That's gaslighting. And it's so
That is.
important to take care of yourself and wellness so that you can provide that space for other people.
Mhm. And remember, no, just the word no is a complete sentence. You
Does
know,
anybody
it's
really,
a
yeah.
great way to do self-care is to say no to people.
Is anybody really good at that, saying no? Ooh, good, Lauren. Yeah. You hermit. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, Kelsey. It
Depends on
depends
who
on
it
who.
is.
Yeah,
That's true, Kelsey.
very much so.
Mhm.
But sometimes that can feel like a no. I know exactly. No. It's hard because we've really not been, it's not been okay to question people or to kind of put some boundaries out there, especially with work, especially
Mhm.
with some families, you know, like, oh, I
Mhm.
don't want to go over there because it's so stressful, but I have to go. You know, all those
Right.
messages that we get. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how
For
do we
sure.
tie all this stuff together with classroom and school support? So we got to take care of ourselves first, for sure.
Mhm.
All right. This is the biggest thing we can understand as human beings is that
Mhm.
circle of control. Does anybody use like Leader in Me at their schools or familiar with the work? There are so many people that have used this circle of control. It might look differently.
Mhm.
In Leader in Me schools, it's habit one, it's be proactive. It's taking care of the things I can take care of.
Right.
So looking at all of the things that can happen in the world, like things that cause stress. What are some things that cause
Mhm.
stress? You can drop it in the chat. Anything, whatever
Question.
what causes stress. Work, yes.
Work, for sure. Family.
Mm, mm.
Expectation. Expect.
Hey,
Christian said expectation.
yeah,
Yep.
finances. 3 weeks till spring break. Exactly.
Right.
Testing.
Inflation.
Oh, these are gorgeous.
Yes,
Money,
they
politics.
are.
Woo!
Yep.
So this,
Politics. That's what I was just thinking our current political situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right. All
like,
the unknowns.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. So like just pulling a couple of these. So testing economic factors, money, change. Can you control it?
Not all of it.
No. So if you can't control or influence, so look at that. If you, well, I actually start in the middle. Is it in my control? What is in your control? Yes, Ashley. What's in your control? She just nailed it. You can control your reaction to it. At the end of the day, the only thing you can control is you.
Mm-hmm.
Your words, your actions, your beliefs, how you show up for people, your responses, your behaviors, your attitudes. That's it. So those are the things that you need to work on, are things that you can control. If you go out of the circle a little bit, if it's not in my control, can I exert some influence in it? And this is like if you have your own children or work with children or anybody, if you work in a room with anybody else, do you have control over whether your students or children or colleagues behave?
No.
We sure think we do, don't we? We can punish, right? We can have consequences for certain behaviors, right? But you still really can't control it. So this is where you're exerting your influence.
Mhm.
So your home environment, so money, can you control it? Some of it you can, like stop spending stuff, start saving stuff, right? Whatever you're trying to do. So how can you exert influence on, let's say your children are spending money, or your spouse, or your pay, you didn't get the raise you thought? Where's the influence in that? What could you do? I know, Lauren. I know. Same. What could you do? Could you go talk to your boss and figure out why you didn't get the raise, or why the check hasn't gone through yet?
Even
Right?
in the South, women are socialized not to.
Not to ask questions.
Not to ask questions, not to ask for money, right? Even
So
though
how-
there's this discrepancy between the salaries.
Right.
Jennifer and Karen, and sometimes in this circle, sometimes we convince ourselves in our head that saying something won't do anything.
Correct.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just have to have the conversation. You just have to
Correct.
communicate.
That's right.
Hopefully something does change, but you won't know if you don't have the conversation.
And most people are
Mhm.
so scared to even have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that fear.
Mhm.
What
So
say you, misters? What say you, misters? I'm sure someone has something to contribute about the question.
just about influence, like we're kind of talking around it too, so it might not be a direct question, but like, so look at I love Kelsey said, I'm a big control freak and I've been trying to live by not my circus, not my monkeys. Have y'all heard that
Right.
before?
Mhm.
Like, you are not the boss of me. If somebody comes
Right.
and tells you to do something, that is quick out of my mouth. Like, you are not the boss of me. Now, I don't always say that out loud, but I'm thinking
Right.
like, I don't want to do that. To help, and Kelsey, in situations where I feel like I need to control, but logically know I can't. That's a beautiful way to kind of put up that boundary of, this is not my problem,
Right.
because we've really been socialized heavily to help people and help people fix things. And that's frustration, and things can lead into, well, they're not doing what I told them to do. Why? Because you have no control over it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Terrence says that, and you're exactly right. And I actually am dealing with this situation myself right now. Sometimes people are afraid of saying something to their supervisor
Mhm.
because there's fear of this backlash, right?
Yeah.
So today I went to one of our administrators and had a sit down conversation and talked about how some situations have not been handled in a trauma informed way. And so I felt heard by this particular administrator, and they actually took notes and were thinking about ways to change how situations are handled. And so we don't know if it will make a difference, but sometimes it can.
Right. And you have to be okay either way.
Right.
Like, don't make yourself miserable if they don't do it your way, because there's so many times you don't know the whole story. You don't know all the variables. And as just a former principal, like, I know a lot of stuff you don't know, and not saying that to brag, because trust me, you don't want to know. But just when decisions are made that feel off, there's usually reasons why. You don't have control over that. And that's okay. Speak your piece and be okay with that. Unless you're not, and then you go meet with them and you express your concerns. I think that's beautiful. And then the last part too is, if you can't control or influence, like the weather, like traffic, right? Like, and I'll scroll back through some of the other things you said. Economic factors, testing, inflation. Like, we can't control that stuff, but you can control how you react to it. Can you learn to accept it? And I still think that goes to a lot of these things that I just mentioned, goes back to voting. So you do have or speaking out, or calling your legislators, or whatever your topic is that's not sitting right with you. That's where the influence comes in.
That's right. Lauren, you're exactly right. You know, we sometimes go in and we try to we speak the truth, and it's not well received. And then there can be things that happen later because they didn't listen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
and Jennifer, that was my thing too. I had taken it all the way up because there were false accusations of things that never would have happened in my classroom, but yet an assistant of mine got to go back to work even though he had assaulted a child. And then they wanted to
Wow.
get me out because I stood up for myself and my kids. So I had like a 2-page dissertation essentially of what I knew that had happened to me that I reported to friends, to kids. And
There
I
you go.
was dismissed because they were friends with my admin. But I've
Wow.
since switched schools, and um, this past year since I left has been a whirlwind of a difference for me. The school that I'm at is a charter school now, and I couldn't be happier. I go to work happy, I come home happy. I'm at my second
Right.
job, not irritated. I go see my
So
parents in
glad.
Columbia, and I'm not biting
Yeah.
their heads off. But a lot of that is the environment, and I
Mhm.
put up with it for 5 years, so I thought it was
100%.
normal, but it's not.
Yes.
Right.
We
That's
do. We
awesome.
normalize that when we're in a tough situation. We just think like, well,
Mhm.
that's just how it is, and it's not.
Well,
Right.
and even like as a child of a former educator, I was like,
Mhm.
I know it's not supposed to be like this, but being in special ed, I stayed where I was because I love what I
Mhm.
do and I was
That's
there for the
right.
kids.
Yeah.
And I knew that me leaving and me standing up for myself, even if it essentially, quote, blackballed me in the county,
Yeah.
was worth
Mhm.
it to me because I needed that change of pace.
Right.
And
Right.
even now, like y'all have talked about with the trauma informed, I got to speak to our like network
Mhm.
director back in November, and I was nervous because the last time I had to speak to somebody that big, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fired or they're gonna say something." And I was
Right.
panicking. And I
Brave. Yeah.
talked to our director, and he actually has a special ed background, and he was very willing to talk to me and hear what I wanted to do for our charter network as far as building a special ed program for more of our
Love it.
um, physically handicapped people. But I felt heard and valued and listened to. Even now,
Mhm.
I've had 3 or 4 meetings with him alone, which is unheard of when he's in charge of 7 or 8 campuses, because I put myself out there and said, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what I'd like to do. I would
Love it.
love your support." And he was
Mhm.
there for it. And that shows what kind of leader he is compared to where I left and what kind of leaders I was working under.
What a
Right.
beautiful example. And that shows trust, his
Right.
willingness to open. So we can't move mountains. So you start with the smaller
Mhm.
rocks. You move the people that can move, and
Mhm.
eventually that leads to such big change. And good for
Right.
you for having courage to go speak freely. And he was receptive. Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you don't know, that's one of the things that happens. Like we talked about our nervous system, and that our nervous system it's really like a recorder, right? So it stores our memories in our body. And because you had that bad experience in your previous school, does not mean the next school and school district is going to be the same way. And so you took that risk, even though you were obviously nervous about it because you didn't
Yeah.
know what was going to happen. But you are now exerting influence over something you can exert influence over, and it's being received. You're being acknowledged, and I think that it's powerful because you now have a voice that you did not have where you were before.
Love
Right,
it.
and I even told my team lead last night, I said, "Look, I went 5 years thinking that I couldn't do anything right as an educator, even though I was seeing progress with behaviors, and that's, like, my niche. I was really good at those harder kids, and I
Yep.
was seeing this progress, but no matter what I did, it always seemed that I was the problem or I was the issue,
Yep.
but yet I've worked for a family that I met through that job, and I've been with them almost as long as I was at that school, and they spoil me rotten, and I'm very fortunate, but it's so nice being able to go to a job now where I have kids that want to come see me. They're like, "I've been bad," even though they haven't, just so they can come see me and get
Right.
extra support. And I'm like, "You haven't, but if you want to see me, like, that's fine." But being
Mhm.
able to have that relationship and be trusted enough to, advocate for my students who might be higher functioning, who need to go into higher level classes, they're like, "Okay, if that's what you think, work on the schedule and let's do it." And it's a whirlwind of difference.
Huge. Good for
That's
you. And I
awesome.
will just take a moment to plug PSTA, because if you're not a member, which I think you are, please do
I am.
that as educators, just to help you advocate. I know, to help you advocate for yourself and for your students and for your colleagues. They are a tremendous resource to
For sure.
help you do that. That's what they do. So please
And
encourage others. to do.
honestly, I'm a huge advocate for just making that change. And, even though that was my dream job, being in all special ed school, it it's not worth my health
Not
or
that one. Yeah.
my
Mhm.
mental health or my
I
physical health
know.
that
I know,
suffered
Terry.
because of it. And it's even if I didn't get a call back from any of the schools in the county that I interviewed with, it's all, I'm a big God's timing kind of thing, and it's worked out better than I could have ever imagined.
Right. I'm so
Right.
glad.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
guys.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Terrence, that is so true that we wonder why all schools are not like Lauren's new school where she's at. That teachers really can be advocates, whether it's for your students or it's for change in the system or it's for yourselves and the staff at the school, because like we know that wellness is important for the staff, right? Because that's what keeps us there. It helps prevent burnout. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And I'll take just a short answer to that is fear and belief systems. Because a lot of people become leaders and principals through power. And, we're not going to go that way, but that's a lot of times hard to break that belief system of I'm in charge and we get to do what I say. And also the fear of pushback to the district. And it just goes culture, like all the things. We'll do a separate one on that. But yeah, but it's definitely a difficult place to be. So this next part, and we're going to go super fast through it because most of this you have no control over, which we're not talking about. Okay. But it's called a trauma sensitive checklist for schools. And I think it's such a great tool to use, and it will be included in the send out just as a litmus test to see how your school is. That's it. It's not if you're not perfect on all these things, you're a terrible school at all. It's really just kind of a base of where we are, where we're starting. And the most of the time we'll spend on what you do have control over. So forgive me as I go really fast. And I'm not going to read all these, but just to explain this different sections. So we have school-wide policies and practices. You really don't have a whole lot of control over school-wide policies and practices.
Right.
Now you can, that's where the influence comes in. If you see things that might be in here that you're like, yeah, I don't think we have that. So let's look at just one. Support staff. Support for staff is available on about the 5th bullet down on a regular basis, including supervision and or consulting with trauma experts, classroom observations, and opportunities for teamwork. If you think, now this is for staff, not faculty. Do we have that? Maybe that's an area that we do need. If you're special ed and you have a teaching assistant or instructional aide in your classroom, do they have the training? So these are great questions just to kind of think, I never thought about that, right? Because a lot of times we're good with teacher faculty development, but not necessarily staff. So just interesting. So school-wide collaborations and linkages with mental health. You are not in control of that.
Right.
There might be systems, there might be partners, there might be processes to refer a student to mental health, to refer a student to the guidance counselor, to refer students to all these places, but you're not in control of that. So let's see.
So number 3, Karen.
There you go. Yep.
Says protocols exist for helping students transition back to school from other placements. So let's say they were in the hospital, whether for mental health or for a health issue. Are there protocols in your district for them when they come back to school from that placement? Or your older students who could have a placement at DJJ?
Yeah.
Is there a protocol for them to come back? Or if you're in a district where there is, I'm going blank right now, the school where they get expelled to.
Yes.
So are there protocols for them to come back to the school. Every district should have protocols for all these situations in place if they're a trauma-informed school.
Yep.
But again, you might have influence. You can make these suggestions. You can even volunteer to head up a team.
Yeah.
Right? To look into these things.
And hopefully they listen. Yeah.
Right?
Perfect. Family partnerships. Now, there are a couple things in you could definitely influence with family partnerships with your students or whatever your job role is in the school to really strengthen family partnerships. I don't know, just as a general, I don't know that we don't do a good job with that. We think we do. We have PTO nights and we have dance nights, but the same people tend to come, right? We don't really step out of that box of meeting people where they are or reducing those barriers. Maybe there's transportation, or if the daddy-daughter dance cost $100 for a daddy and a daughter, that's really not attainable to a lot of people. And so I remember at my school, we always kept it we never made a profit. We're not making a profit off of our children. We're trying to offer an opportunity. So ours was low. It was maybe 15, I don't even remember, but it was not 100. And there were some schools that were making $40,000 or $50,000 on the daddy-daughter
Wow.
dance.
Hey, Karen,
Yep.
it's almost like, you know, the whole mantra of putting yourself in a situation that you may not be used to being in.
Yep.
Mhm.
Those barriers like you're talking about, like a needs assessment, like leadership in schools to say, you know, let's walk through every step of a parent's like journey,
Yes.
X,
Yes.
Y, and Z, and see what type of situation could come up. And then
Right.
an extension of that, inviting former parents that have graduated from that school to come back and say, look, I had issues with this.
That was too much. Yeah.
Like stuff like
100%.
that, I think removes so many barriers, not only for parents, but also streamlines the experience for staff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
Even-
And
Yeah.
now that I'm gone, I wish somebody would have said, I don't know that I would have believed them. And hopefully you have like the reciprocity to like have a honest conversation and not get your feelings hurt. Cause I think that's people are like,
Right.
why
Yeah.
love me? And I did love me a spirit week. Like I love twin day and, wear mismatched clothes, like all that stuff. But listening to parents, it is so stressful. Like I don't have a Batman shirt. So am I going to have to go buy a shirt, or is my kid going to get made fun of? Like those kinds of things, even though you don't have control over the school or district, you do have control over that in your classroom.
Right.
That's,
Right.
what you expect. Like gone are the days we used to, if you can believe it, back in the late 1900s, we used to just say that you have a book report due and it's due next Friday and you need a poster board and you need all this stuff. And kids they would bring it in. Now we didn't really
Mhm.
think about what it cost, what the
Right.
energy, what the effort, the lack of transportation that some people had. And we kind of transitioned to, we're going to give you all the materials to try to alleviate that. So just going
Mhm.
into this trauma-informed piece of understanding other people's situations, that it might not be just a fun day, that it could be very stressful.
Right.
Yeah. And the last part is just community linkages. I'm going to skip because we love to talk, first of all, because there's so much we can stay on here for hours, which we will not.
Mhm. We won't do that to you.
And so here's classroom strategies and techniques. And these to me are what you do have more control over as much as possible.
Mhm.
So just activities are structured in predictable and emotionally safe ways. There are a lot of things that go down in a school that are not predictable. Fire drills, like most of the time we know that ahead of time. But a lot of things like, oh, by the way, it's picture day. Nobody remembered, or we have to go outside, or somebody pulled the fire alarm. We have to go outside. Like there's a lot of things that go on that's not predictable, or a teacher didn't show, there's no sub. And so now their class is having to come in our class and we're having to rearrange like that. That's really troubling for a lot of students and teachers. That's hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
Positive.
So even I think like planning ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right. If that's going to happen,
Yeah.
where
you
you
know.
maybe partnering teachers up.
Yeah.
So that you can plan ahead.
Yeah. So, and just opportunities for learning how to interact effectively with others. Like, we just kind of assume that if people are adults or if children, they just know how to do it. And they don't.
But they don't. Adults don't even know how to do it.
Are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at the modeling going on here up in Facebook and everywhere else. Like, don't read comment sections. Like, we don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And who's watching us? Kids, they're watching and we're modeling. We're terrible models for that. So anyway, these are just things I think it's really important. And I love it. Let me talk about the first one too, real quick, because the next slide is the same thing. Is expectations are communicated clear, concise, and positive. The one of the biggest, oops, where is it? Oh, it's not there. Hold on. I skippity dude. Why is it not going? Sorry. Clear expectations. It's on down in the presentation. I'm not sure why it got wonky. Hold on. Let's see if I can, it's not letting me go. All right, Jen, can you talk for a minute so I can get this
Sure.
saying? Because now I'm totally triggered.
Okay. Yeah. So when you think about this, think about your own classrooms. What are some of the things that, like, that your students know, that you communicate very clearly so they know what the expectations are? Can anybody think of anything? Because I know you do it every day. What's a clear expectation you have? Acceptable behavior, right? Yeah. Yeah. What about practicing routines? Do you do that?
Mhm.
So do your students then know what to expect? Yeah. How to communicate. That's a great example too, Kelsey.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And thank y'all.
Yeah.
See how that worked? Like my brain, because it got real tunnel vision on why is this thing not clicking? And I couldn't think. So thank you. It's co-regulation. Like, help me. Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. That's the routines and clear expectations are one of the best things we can do to create a trauma-informed space. So this was actually part of, I don't think it's not from my school, but it was very similar. We had a matrix. Anybody use PBIS? It's wonderful with clear, positive interventions or strategies to
Yep.
my brain.
We're not all about PBIS,
God.
but there are pieces that are really good.
Yeah. So like, but we tell kids, be safe. What's that mean to a 5-year-old?
Right.
Probably not the same thing that it means to you. Or be responsible. That one, love that one. What does that mean? And be respectful. That one's a tough one. Because respect to you might be very different than respect to me. And so students get mixed messages all the time. Culturally, it might not be appropriate for them to look you in the eye. But what do we do a lot? You look at me when I'm talking to you. Right? That's the not trauma-informed piece. But looking at some of these to be real specific is how you teach children to be safe is this. When you're coming in the room, you wait in the line to check in. To be responsible, you give your teacher your cell phone.
Yeah.
To be respectful, you walk quietly to your desk. So you teach them what that means in different spaces.
Regulating their behavior too is a big one.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
huge.
They don't know what that means.
And the goal, being able to be in the moment and not have an outburst, to be physically, I guess, using physicality or words, but just being able to say, oh, this is a moment where I was wrong or I didn't get what I wanted. I can self-regulate.
Right.
Them how to self-regulate is a big part of what we're seeing in our schools. And I know the teachers on here will probably agree with that. They want their students to be able to self-regulate their emotions.
And
we've got to teach that.
Who taught you how to self-regulate?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Or anybody on who
Yeah,
taught
for
you?
me- If it for me, it was my parents. I don't know, mistress, I don't know, or experience sometimes teaches us. I don't know.
Yeah, good experience. Like,
So I see more parents, Kelsey, therapy. I think for most of us,
Christian,
you
say
know,
something. Jennifer, can Christian say something?
yeah, jump in, Christian.
Go ahead, speak loud too.
so if you come from a place where people already like, especially because I've seen some people say parents, like I can say like my parent like wasn't really necessarily focused on teaching self-regulation, more or less like getting me what I needed, to the
Yeah.
point where I need you to sit down and not get up.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
But they were
Right.
direct, right? Direct in teaching you expectations. Yeah.
And clear.
but then it came down later in the line to teach yourself like self-regulation, where it should be foundational to teach children how to self-regulate because it shouldn't be action reaction, more like action pause and reaction.
Correct.
Right.
It's
That's
that
right.
pause right
Yeah.
between, because we've all been there. I mean, and
Yeah.
a lot of us still are there, when you
Mhm.
find yourself like yelling at students or yelling at your own children or yelling at your partner, or it's a trigger.
Right.
And so we have to be self-aware to understand what caused that and what are some better ways to show it. But most of us, I think you're so lucky if you were taught that, whether it's implicit or explicitly taught how to do that. Because I don't think most people.
Mhm.
And that-
So I was taught to regulate through fear,
yeah.
right? And so that's not really teaching how to regulate.
Mm-mm.
Because if I'm not in that situation with that fearful person, then I don't know what to do in the next situation,
Right.
you know?
Because what do most parents like, and I say most, that's probably not true, but back in the generationally, like I'm a
Mhm.
Gen Xer, like, and my parents didn't necessarily do this either, but like if we made a mistake or something, it was go to your room,
Right.
shut, children are to be seen and not heard. Like we've all heard
Right.
that, right? I'll give you
Mhm.
something to cry about.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's all go pick the switch off the tree and then I'm going to hit you with it. Like
Mhm.
it was through power and through compliance that you
Right.
learned, and that's an air quote, for
Mhm.
respect, because it's really compliance. There's a big difference between respect and compliance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Lauren, you're right. All emotions are acceptable, but all behaviors are not. Right.
Yeah.
So we've got to show them what to do with their emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's role playing. Sometimes it's like me owning that I'm angry right now, but instead we're all going to do some deep breathing exercises,
right.
and just owning it so they see.
This is just a real quick kind of, because we are so running out of time, and that's okay. So in a classroom, there's I don't know that you can see the very end of that. So you have an active engagement and more passive at the bottom. So you have a quadrant. You have
Karen, do you want something on the screen?
Oh, it's on my screen.
It's not on ours.
Well,
We'll pretend like it is, Karen.
oh
Yeah, I was imagining with you. We were there, but we couldn't actually visualize it.
Well, listen. Okay, hold on. Let's go back. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Me and this computer.
It's okay.
And now I just see Jen.
We're not seeing gray boxes all over the screen. So that's
All right, yeah, that's
Why
good.
is it always
inside
on?
joke. Inside joke, everybody. There.
No, it's all
All
good.
right, it is. It
Good.
is. Are you
Okay.
sharing the screen?
Yeah. And then I took it off.
There.
Oh,
Let's
it's
see what
gonna-
happens.
Can you see that now?
We see black.
It says you have started.
There it is.
Yep, we're good.
Things you can start doing now. Excuse me. That's what we see.
Yes. So just some classroom strategies, because I know this is kind of sidestepping. I'm also trying to watch time to give you some actual strategies. And what I was sharing that you couldn't see was that the goal really is to be a warm demander. So in that grid, I'm scared to go back to it. There we go. Can you see that?
We can
in
see
the
adults
grid,
first. Yes.
adults first. So it
Yeah.
goes up is the active engagement with students. Have you ever,
Mhm.
hopefully you're active with your students. You're talking to them, you're looking at them, you're discussing things, you're, walking around. The passive part, have you ever had a passive teacher? Like thinking back in your educational experience? You didn't? Oh my God.
Mm-mm.
Seventh grade math, man. She sat behind the desk the whole time, told us what page to get on, and we had to do it and turn it on the end. She didn't talk to us. She didn't demonstrate anything. And I hate math to this day because of that. Like she was just not engaged with what was going on at all. And then you go kind of left to right where you have professional warmth, right? And then professional distance. So professional warmth. So, hopefully that's more on the side of where you are. Professional distance, I think, as you get to like sometimes with higher ed, like the higher you get, typically you get a little bit more distance between.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying friends, we're not being friends with children, but there's a difference between that personal warmth and still boundaries. That's not inappropriate at all. And that distance. So we kind of want to be in that top left quadrant of being a warm demander. So we have high expectations. We are engaged and active with our students, but we're also warm. Like, I know you didn't get that assignment in today, Jen, and but I also know that you had a lot going on yesterday. And so I just want to check in with you and make sure you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when is that coming in? So we're going to get that done today. So I'm going to give you some time. We're going to work on it today. So you're not letting them off the hook, because that's where you get into like down with the passive part is like, wow, this student had a lot going on. So I'm just not going to hold them. I'm just going to let it slide. And I don't think we do that on purpose. But I think time after time after time, then students learn and people learn that no one's really going to hold their feet to the fire. And we want those high expectations, but we got to help them get there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best thing you can do, is to support them wherever they are. Struggle is good. Failure is good. Mistakes are good.
They are.
And we've all been really gaslit to think a mistake is life-threatening, right? If you make a mistake, like it'll destroy you. That's how we get better. Like this whole technological fiasco today, I don't know if that's making me better, just making me stressed out. But like, struggle is good.
Mm-hmm.
So let's don't just avoid it, because I think a lot of people just spend their whole lives trying to avoid it instead of walking through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I've got to click. So things to start doing. And this is like attention span over here on the right. 2-year-old, you got about 4 to 6 minutes. While we have, not for a 2-year-old. So we have 5 to 6-year-old. What grade is that?
Like first grade.
Kindergarten, first grade. 12 to 18 minutes you got on an average.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you have a 30-minute lesson? Because they're tapping out about halfway through. They just can't developmentally do that. Take a little brain break in the middle. Move around.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the carpet, go back to your desk. If you're on the desk, go back to your carpet. Whatever. Change it up. So, and as you get older, you can see that we build that stamina. So if you're in middle school and high school, you got 30 or 40 minutes, and brain breaks are still good for them. Stand up and stretch. Humans are not built to sit in chairs all day. And I know as an adult, I become a behavior problem when I can't move. Anybody else want to flip a table sometimes? It's like, why do I got to sit here in this meeting? I got stuff to do, right? So I don't think that changes as we grow. So be proactive, not reactive. And just like Christian said, Mr. Sanchez, with putting that pause between the antecedent, something that's causing it, and that reaction, make it a response.
Mm-hmm. I love the say less. Like if you can teach your students hand signals, it is so powerful.
Very.
And
Post-it
then they
notes.
can do it to communicate with you even while you're teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody use hand signals in their classroom? A lot of like, this is
Mhm.
B, the letter B. A lot of teachers use this. It's just ASL, American Sign Language for B. That was to go to the bathroom. So you don't have everybody going, I need to go to the bathroom. Like that's not happening. The procedure that you would teach crystal clear is that you give that. If you need to sharpen a pencil, you hold the pencil. Whatever the procedure is, you teach it. But to
Right.
say less, we love to talk. I'm so guilty. If I hear a quiet, like I want to fill it with something, as you can tell. But the less you say, and especially like with your own children, when you're upset or angry or you've been triggered, be quiet. Because that's when you typically say things that you regret,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Kelsey, I love that your hand signals result in you just having to shake your head yes. I mean, you can just keep right on moving, right?
Yes.
And they get what they need, and you're able to continue teaching.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, you
That-
don't, and you teach middle school that, see, 4 or 5. So, and you could have a quick anchor chart with one pencil, two,
Mhm.
however you do it. Even Post-it notes. You have a student that you notice starting to get a little ramped up. And so you're trying to teach them
Right.
that, oh, I'm starting to see it. Maybe you're not, but I'm starting to see it. And of course, these conversations happen when students are not dysregulated. But even putting a little Post-it note on their desk, there's nothing on it. You just put a little Post-it note on their desk is like a little message of, all right, take a breath.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's go to the health room, or maybe, whatever you have established for that. So the less you can talk, the better. And that happens with
Right.
spouses and partners and everything else too. The less said, definitely the better. Anybody do check in, check out? You might have a formalized program in your school and you may not know yet, but that's a beautiful program. And it's actually like a
Mhm.
program. You don't think you have to buy it, but it's checking in with students when they come in and checking out.
Mhm.
Usually we use that in a tier 2 or 3 with behaviors. So students that typically came in dysregulated all the time, they would go to their check-in person, and they'd be like,
Mhm.
hey, Craig, how's today? Are you good? What'd you have for breakfast? It's just a warm, safe place
Mhm.
to just talk. No
No
stress,
discipline.
no discipline. It's like not, did you study for your test? What did your mom say? But like, it's none of that. It's just a check-in. And then at the end of the day, or the end of the period, or the end of 7 minutes, because we had that too, then you
Mhm.
do a checkout. How'd it go today? What was the best thing you did in school today? It's just a warm way in and a warm way out. And it builds those relationships. But you can actually look, some schools do CICO, but it's check in, check out. So check it out. You can Google it and find all kinds of resources then. Morning meetings are a great way to also check in with your students, no matter the age. Just talk to me. Like, what'd you have for dinner last night? It doesn't have to be anything crazy important, but it's also a great opportunity to talk about, like yesterday at recess, I really noticed some things that I think we need to talk about. And then you have the conversation and then they can share.
Mhm.
Choices. That's one of my favorite. At the end of the day, you want them to do work. Like that's why we're here, right? So
Mhm.
you have a student that's defiant and doesn't want to do the work. Well, yes, family gatherings. That's good, Paulette. Like, so
Yep.
do you want to stand up or sit down to do your work? Do you
No
want
worries,
to,
Michelle.
yeah. Do you want to use marker or crayon? Do you want to use this pencil or this pencil? It's an
Mhm.
illusion of choice because they're still doing the work. You just don't care how they do it. But sometimes we get in such these power struggles of, well, they're not sitting in a chair. They're not writing with a pencil. They're writing with a pen, and that's against the rules. And I'm like, well, then you need a new rule, because at the end of the day, the whole goal is for them to do the work. Who cares if they're singing it to you? Who cares? Right? So
Yep.
establish that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Goal-based choices. That's right. And so
Yeah.
that's your control. You can control the options. And it's an
Mhm.
illusion. They're not getting out of the work. Because some people are
Yep.
like, are you ready to do your work? Well, guess what the answer is? What's the answer? Are you ready to do your work now? No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. You offered a yes or no. Do
Right.
you want to do your work now or do you want to do it? I'll set the timer for 2 minutes. Do you want to do it now or in 2 minutes?
Mhm.
2 minutes. Do you want to do it before lunch or after lunch? You're not letting them off the hook. You're just giving them an illusion of choice.
Mhm.
Anything else on there that you see that might be helpful? It's 5:25, so we're trying to make sure we're respectful of your time.
Kelsey, did you have something you wanted to say? I saw you unmuted.
Thank you for seeing that.
Yep. She's like, no. Sorry, Kelsey. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Move. Yeah.
Movement is good. And incentives, y'all. The greatest incentives are relational incentives.
And I will tell you, so I had the privilege when I became principal, one of my former 5th grade students was a teacher at my school. Like all the feels. Anytime I could, I just went into a room because it was absolutely amazing. But I asked her one day, I was like, what do you remember most just about elementary school? And she said, oh, the best thing that was ever done was in your class. And when I think I used to do the teacher of the day, like a teaching assistant of the day, because I am not orderly or organized enough to keep up with the 24 helpers that you have. Like, oh, you're the line leader for today. I couldn't do that. So you were just my TA for the day in 5th grade. And so she remembered that if you were the TA, you got to sit at my desk because I wasn't sitting there.
Mm.
So, but she remembered that. I mean, as a 30-plus-year-old woman, she was like, we got to sit at your desk when we were a teaching assistant, and it just made us feel so special.
Wow.
That didn't cost me a dime.
Right.
And I don't think I even thought it was like brilliant at the time, but it's like, what an easy, quick way. I didn't have anything confidential or anything, I kept it kind of clean, but it doesn't have to be stuff. Because I think sometimes in education,
Mhm.
we bring the stuff.
And
And it's
Kim,
really
my
just-
class, it was the chair. I had a chair that had wheels on it,
Yeah.
and they
Oh,
could.
everybody wants that.
So, like, if you did something good, you could sit in the roly poly chair, and that was
Love
the best thing for them.
Yes.
That's
Isn't it
fantastic.
like we don't know. I mean, and ask them. Sometimes you just have to ask them. I love Ashley. Yeah, kids and teachers love to take their shoes off. 100%. Yeah, that's totally free. What a great incentive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one, Karen.
Well, with littles, I would say that one might work.
I love taking
early in
off.
the morning, not after recess.
Right.
No, not after recess. Yeah,
sure.
but middle school feet. No, I agree.
Not middle school feet. Yeah.
They do love to take it off. But anywho, so it's set 5:27. Anything that you just want to say or questions or
Yeah.
I know we were kind of a little all over the place, but this is the part where the application piece and your practice piece comes to match your beliefs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how you want to be treated. I think a lot of trauma-informed education, like people want
It is.
when, if a teacher's late all the time. So this is going back to my principal days. If a teacher's late all the time, everybody knows it. Okay. Well, as a principal, they want me to like fire them. Okay. Behind closed doors, it's like they need to go because they cannot be here on time. Well, when they're late all the time, how do they want me to treat them? Oops, I'm so sorry, right?
Yeah.
You want the grace when you do it, but we're not always real willing to give that to others.
Mhm.
And I know if it happens more than a couple times, like I get that. But at the same time, people are really punitive. That's the kind of world that we've, been taught to want.
Yep. Y'all have been great. Thank you so much.
And I'm going to get to, see, look.
Here we are.
So those are the last books, and I think we've promoted them a ton, but they're so good. The What Happened to You, if you've not read it, you can also get it on Audible. Connections Over Compliance was Lori's her earlier book with neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
And then the intentional neuroplasticity, Jen actually uses that in her the neuroscience class in our graduate program.
Yeah, it's a, if you want to understand the brain and how to like practically apply it in your classroom, that's an outstanding book.
And there's some information if you want to reach out, if you have questions, if you're interested in our program, wonderful. If not, that's okay.
Yep.
Not a timeshare.
For
We're not
sure.
going to do all that, but you can scan that, takes you to our page. There's our emails. Feel free to reach out. We are so thankful for you and thankful for Craig and PSTA for letting
Yeah.
us be here with you. So thank
And
you.
the work you guys are doing and the fact that you're interested in being trauma informed with your students is beautiful.
100%.
And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and especially with spring break a couple weeks away still.
Yes.
Right.
Hang in there.
Come on, spring break.
Take care of
Yeah.
yourself. So make
Yeah.
April a take care of yourself month. Like do that.
Absolutely. And then the next few days, I'll have a send out with everything, the recording, the PowerPoint. Karen usually sends it to me right after we're done. So I'll have everything. So expect that in the next day or so. Also with your certificates for those of you that attended today. Thank you for joining us for this year. Those of you that attended just your first day or all 4 or 2 or 3, we appreciate the time that you took to be here today and throughout the year. We'll do it again next year. We'll get the band all back together and we'll do it again next year.
There we go.
And,
We're game.
if you're interested in the program, it is a great program. And with that,